Okay, so what we're going to be doing is creating a metal die, like a pair of dice that you roll. So we're going to start off with a box. Just start off with a box, and then we'll size it after we get it. Okay, so the box needs to be pretty small. Oh, let's say, let's make it, we'll just round it to 1 inch. So, which is actually kind of big, but for what we're doing, it'll be fine. Okay, the other thing we want to do is, now that we have the box, is we want to change its pivot point. The pivot point on the box at the bottom, we want it to be in the center. So what we're doing is we're going over here to the Hierarchy tab, click on Pivot right here, and then Affect Pivot Only, and then Center to Object, and that will center it. And then we want to move it to the center of our world, so we just go to Move, and they should all be zeros down here at the bottom. That'll center in our world, and let's just turn the grid off. Okay. That looks pretty good. Okay, let's put an Edit Poly modifier on this. Now we could just collapse it to Editable Poly, but this is going to leave us an out to come back and change things. And what we're going to do here is grab, by the way, when you make your box, which I didn't cover, when you make your box, make sure there's only one length, width, and height segments on it. Okay, grab all the vertices, and then what we're going to do is we're going to chamfer these. So what we want to do is go down to Edit Vertices, and then we want to do chamfer, and we want to go to the chamfer settings. And I want to change my background. I don't want that gradient. I like a solid background. Okay, this will be real sensitive. And we only, right here, we only want this set to 0. And then we're going to get something like this, and that's a little bit too big. Maybe something like, let's see what 2 gets us. Yeah, I kind of like that. Okay, 0.2 is what I've got on here. Now, this is not magic numbers, just kind of a visual I have in my head. And then I'm going to click OK on that. All right, and let's go ahead and name this. This is our low poly. It's going to be our low poly die. And let's make a material for it. Let's just get a regular physical material. And a good setting for our physical material is 0.6 on our reflection and 0.6 on our roughness, and that's just a good starting point. Let's assign that, and we're just going to call this our base material, and that's good for right now. Alright, so now on our wireframe, we're going to be making a high poly and a low poly. And on our low poly, green is kind of the tradition for low poly, and blue for high poly, so that you can just tell the difference between them really quick by looking at the wireframe. So we're going to put a modifier on this. So we're going to put a chamfer modifier on this. And you may get something like this, and that's just because the default setting is way too high here on the amount. Just right click on these tumblers to 0 it out. And then we're going to put a small amount on this. Let's see what we get. Maybe that's pretty good right there. What we got, 0.02, and our segments would be 0, And that seems okay. And so that's going to be our low poly. Got some shading anomalies on it, but it's going to be okay because we're going to auto smooth this anyway. Those shading anomalies is because we should probably put an inset loop in here, which will help it. Like that. But we're not going to be using the smoothing groups off this, so I don't think we need to do that. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then we're going to go ahead and clone this. I'm going to right click and clone it. Now, be sure we clone it. I see people doing this all the time, holding down the shift and moving it to clone it. It's not that we can't do that, but what we want is everything sitting right on top of itself. So we really don't want to move it. We want to just right click, clone, make sure it's copy, not an instance. And this is our high poly. And we're just going to call this high poly die. And the other one, low poly die. Alright, we can hide the low poly one right now. Okay, on the high poly one, we want it to be, this edge to be a little bit wider. So we're going to go out a little bit more. Maybe let's go 2.026. And then on our segments, we want 2 segments. And then let's do an inset on this. And like I said, your inset may blow it up, so just be sure to zero it out and then come back in and drop that in there. And a lot of times you want to look at this. Actually, I think I like the shading on it, maybe. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So put another segment in here. Okay, so we don't get that shading anomaly. And that looks pretty good. So that's the edge that we're going to bake off and put onto our low poly. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we need to unwrap this. So before we unwrap it, you don't want to really unwrap on a chamfer modifier. So let's go ahead and put an edit poly on top of that. All right, and then let's unwrap from that. Okay, so we got unwrap modifier on here. And then you want to go ahead and click this Open UV Editor. And by default, it's already going to have some mapping coordinates on it because we started from a box, and the box has mapping coordinates on it when we start, but they're not good mapping coordinates for what we need, so we're going to dump these mapping coordinates. On your unwrap modifier, if you come down here at the bottom, there's display. And these are existing map seams, and we don't want to see those, so we're not getting rid of them. We don't want to look at them, so we can click here, and then we won't see those. Okay, this is our seam button. There's a couple of ways that this can be done. You can do a point by point. That's one way you can do that. And what that does is you click a point, and then you trace it around. And don't worry if you accidentally get one that's not supposed to be. Matter of fact, I'll do one just so that you can see. So what we're doing is I want to cut this top piece off as one piece is what I want to do. And there's lots of ways that you can actually put where you put your seams, but I'm going to do this where the top and the bottom have the little diamond things on it. Okay, so we go all the way around that. All right, so you can see right there, I accidentally have one that I didn't want. Okay, this button right here is Edit Seams, and it allows you to edit a seam. Okay, like I can click and add a seam. Now, I'm trying to create an island where this is all cut as one thing. So I don't really want this cut. If you hold down the Alt key, then you can deselect. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so now we want to turn that off. We want to pick a polygon. It really doesn't matter, one of these polygons. Just pick one. And then this button right here is going to expand that out to the blue. And it'll select that whole thing. So we're putting a coordinate on that piece. We can do a planar coordinate, and then you switch which direction over here. Okay, so actually the Z coordinate is what we wanted. And then you turn this off, and now we can move that out. We're just going to move it out of the way. As a matter of fact, I like to move all these out of here. This is called our one-to-one space. This is where eventually we're going to put everything. Okay, so now this needs to be relaxed. To do that, you can go up here to Tools, Relax. There's different options in here. Probably this Unfold 3D Optimize will work fine for what we're doing. So we just hit Apply, and then it folds that out like that, which is fine. Now, what we don't like is we don't like that it's tilted at an angle. We want it straight. So we're going to go to Edge here and pick one of these straight edges. It doesn't matter which one. And then this button right here will rotate it to align to an edge, and now it's straight. And there we go. That part is unwrapped. Okay, so there are other ways. I'm going to do the bottom here, and we'll do it a different way. This time, instead of this seams, I'm going to go and just click this button, and I'm going to pick edges. And I'm just holding down the Control button to add to a selection. So this is just like a normal kind of modeling technique, picking edges. So there's lots of different ways to do things, and I'm just showing you different ways. Sometimes one might be better than the other. Okay, so that selected those all the way around it. Now this button right here will convert any selection, okay, to a seam. So when I click that, then they all turn blue. Okay, so there's another island. So we go to Polygon, and we pick it. And then we go Planar, and we want to expand this here and make sure it's on the Z axis. That's good. And then turn off, you'll see that we have it here, turn off the projection now. We can move it out. And then we're going to do the same thing where we're just going to relax it. Oops. Didn't like that. Okay, so I just went back and re-clicked on the planar map. Let's try this again. There's several ways that you can flatten these out. Let's try that again. It's kind of weird. This is a new utility that's in here. Okay, there it went. Not sure. Let me show you some different ways though. Okay. Another one is this one, Relax by Polygon Angles. And you have to run it a couple of times. And there it goes. So that's another way. There's also, we can use Quick Peel. Let me undo this. Another one is quick peel. Now, I like quick peel, but there's some things I don't like about it. I would like to be able to just quick peel this, but it works on everything. So this is your quick peel button. What it will do is flatten it out and then put it in this box at the same time. Okay, now, I don't really need to look at these checkers right now. They kind of bother me. So right up here is a button. You turn those off. Okay, so these are not correct right yet. Matter of fact, what we want to do is go down here and click by element. And that way I can select these and move them away. Okay, so now turn off element and go to edge. And now let's pick an edge and let's straighten that, and then that one's straight. And actually it broke these pretty good, but I want to go ahead and show you another way. Okay, so now I need to break these pieces off. So what I'm going to do is just go edit seams, and I'm going to put a seam there. And so I'm going to have one of these with an edge to the left. It doesn't matter left or right. And I could put them all together on one. So I'm just going to follow through. Now I'm not holding the control key down. You can just select these and it will add to a selection. Okay, so now I've got a seam between all of these. And so now I can go here. I can expand it. I want planar, and I want it from which direction? Yeah, the Y. Okay, then that looks pretty good. And I need to turn that off. There and go there. And then I'm going to relax it. Okay, that looks good. And let's go to the next. Go here, planar. Let's expand that. Have that edge. This will be X. Okay, turn that off. Can move it out. Let's see how we do with the optimized one. Yeah, that works good. Okay, here, expand it, planar, looks like that needs to be Y, turn it off, move it out, relax it, okay, and we got one more, so we'll go here, expand that out, planar, this direction, and there we go. Okay. Alright, the next thing we need to do is to pack all of these in. We're going to go down here to this pack normalized, and I want 0.02. This is setting how much space is between them. So I select them all, and then I click this button, and that'll pack them in here. And that's a little loose. Let's go maybe 0.01. It's because this die is so small. Yeah, that's pretty good. Alright, so let's go ahead and I'm going to go down here, pick by element, so I can pick an element, and I want to rotate this up. That's good. And let's rotate this one up. And we're going to do the same here. Got a lot of wasted space in here, but for right now, we're okay. Okay, I got a little bit of space in here I can deal with, so I'm going to go ahead and take all of these, and then we're going to go up here to scale. Now, by default, it scales in the center. I want it to scale from this corner, so this button right here allows me to pick a point, and I want the point in the bottom left-hand corner, and then I can scale from that corner to kind of fill this in like that. All right, that's a pretty good unwrap. We've got a lot of wasted space in here, and we can talk about that in a later video, but that is a pretty decent unwrap. Looks like I've got a little bit of tilt in this piece, so I'm going to pick this edge and straighten up. Maybe it's just my display. Okay, that looks pretty good. Then the last thing we want to do is we want to put a smooth modifier on this. This will get rid of our smoothing groups. It's going to overwrite any smoothing groups that are in it. We want auto smooth, and we want it at a really high degrees, like 180 degrees. And that'll take all of the smoothing groups off of it, because we want to get smoothing groups from our high poly die. And now that's a low poly die that's pretty good, ready to go. Let's go do a check. So on our base shader here, in our base color, let's pull out, and we want to go to maps. We want to go to general, and we want to get a checker map. Now this is a procedural map that generates a checkerboard pattern. When you first come, it'll be something like this, and it's just because it's so big is what's going on here. A good size is something around 50 on your tiling on your U and V, 50 to 60 according to how big our object is. And now we can see our checker pattern. And what we're trying to check is that all our checkers are the same size, which they will be because the way we used our utility. So our goal is to have all the checkers approximately the same size, which means the pixel density, or it's really called a texel density because it's not pixels yet, is the same across it. So in other words, there's no, when we start making our bitmaps to texture it, there's not more focus in one area or the other, more pixels in one area than the other. Sometimes we do that, but for the most part, this is what we're shooting for. And then we don't want any stretching. We want to make sure there's no stretching of anything. Okay. Which I will show you an example of that. So if I go in here, and let's take, say, this, and we're going to non-proportional scale it up like this, so it's stretched, and you'll see we'll get something like this. So see, this is stretched pixels, and they're not the same size. So that's what we're trying to not do. Okay, so this is pretty much ready to go. Our low poly is ready to go. So let's just make a clone of this. So we're just going to clone it. And we're just going to make this as our copy. Actually, let's just make this our original. And we're going to hide our original for a rainy day. Okay, we no longer need this on it. And we can collapse this now. So we're just going to go ahead and convert it to an editable poly. So we don't have all that stuff on the stack anymore, and we've baked all that information into it, and it's ready to go. All right, wonderful, quite wonderful. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to export this. So we just have it, we need to make sure we have it picked. And then we're going to go File, and we're going to go Export, Export Selected. You want to again have it using Export Selected, not Export, because if I export, it'll export everything that's in my stack over here. And I just want to export this one object. So we're going to Export Selected. And that's going to automatically go into our export folder. So let's just call this, this is our dice. And we're going to leave it at an FBX, save that. Then a dialog box is going to pop up. Okay, now there's different things that are in here. You can embed media, which we may play with that later right now, but we don't need that on. We don't really need any other things of these to be turned on. We don't need lights. It wouldn't matter if you left these on because we told export selected, so it's not doing that. And we don't need any animation. There might be times we do some of this. So sometimes we may want to export some of this stuff with it. But right now, we just want geometry. And really, we don't want, all of this should be off, except that we want to preserve the edge orientation, which way the edges are flowing. And we want our smoothing groups to be baked into it. Those are the couple of things that we want. And then click OK. And then that'll export that. So here's my folder, and I export, and there's my die exported in there. Okay, now I'm over here at Sketchfab. You guys need to register a free account at Sketchfab. It doesn't matter if you use your school email address or your personal email address. It doesn't matter. This is a box that I had already brought in just as a test, and I'm just going to overwrite this because I don't really need this. So we're going to go to Edit Properties, and then right here it allows you to re-upload a mesh. So you do this periodically. If we uploaded something and we decided we wanted to change the mesh, then we can re-upload it. So I can upload here, and then I can just drag this in, or you can hit browse and put it in here too. It's uploading it over here. So I think this is kind of confusing because you're looking, because, well, that's not it. Yeah, it's still uploading it. It takes a few minutes for it to upload it, and then it's going to ask you, okay, you want to check the model. So you can click here, and then this is the old one over here, and this is the new one over here. And we want to go ahead and choose to re-upload the model. And so now we'll edit our settings. Okay, so now it's brought it in. So when you bring it in, things just stark white because there's no materials on it. So we want to go to our Scene tab right here. We want to drop a background in. You can pick colors and stuff to put in the background. I find there's some default images. Now these are all for free accounts. You can actually upgrade your account, and then you can put different backgrounds in here. This dirty light works pretty good where we have some kind of textural thing that we can see our stuff on. And then that looks pretty good. Now for your lighting, we can do all kinds of lighting and stuff in here, but right now we're just going to let our HDRI lighting. And this industrial room is okay. You can change these different ones. You just want something that has objects in it that we can reflect into it. Okay, so we'll just leave it at that default. Now you're going to go here to materials, and this is where we're going to do our magic. Now right now the base color is set to white. We can go ahead and let's just make this a mid gray for right now. Later we're going to replace that, but then it's not so stark in our face. And this is our metalness, which is all the way off, so it's a plastic. Okay, but we can sit here and go, okay, it's metal. Now that's a metal shader. And then our roughness determines how glossy it is. This is very rough, and this is glossy. And you can see when I turn it glossy and I have metalness, I'm reflecting. This is like a really, reflective metal. If I hold down the Alt key and use the center mouse button, I'm rotating that HDRI file around. Okay, so that's like a really glossy piece of metal. If I turn the metal down, now it's a glossy piece of plastic. And there we go. That's a good start. Let's just leave our roughness in the middle right now. Okay, so we want to save our settings. And let's go back to max. Okay. Alright, so now here is our high poly. We're going to make this a blue wireframe. Alright, but I want to put some numbers on this. Or not numbers, but the little holes that are on a die. So let's start in the top view. And what we're going to do is make a cone. I'm going to make it out here for right now. And I'm making a cone. As a matter of fact, when you make your cone, you might want to be in a 3D view so you can kind of see it better. Click, hold down and drag. Then let up on the mouse and pull down. And actually we want the cone to be going down. So I'm going to push it up so the cone is coming up. Click, and then I can set the throw of the cone. And we can go ahead and manipulate all this afterwards. So, by the way, Z zooms in. And so I'm going to go put it above it up here for right now, just so we can see it. And this is a little big because I need to be able to get 6 of these across here. So let's make the radius maybe something like that. Okay, and then I don't need it to be this tall. Maybe something like this. Let's make this other radius. Okay, now one of the things, I don't need these height segments either, so I can get rid of those. Now, one of the things that you have to kind of learn about casting normals is that this angle is going to tell the normal how deep this is. Okay, so if I come in and I make this the same, like this, which is what we know is really happening, then a normal is a light ray that's casting straight down, and it won't see any depth at all. So we want it to have an angle that's kind of steep. Something like this will work good for us. Okay, we're going to subdivide this. So we want to have some cap segments. Maybe something about like that. Let's isolate that. Okay, that'll be good. Okay, at that point, that's going to make a nice little inset for our hole on the die. And so let's just go ahead and put an edit poly on this. Now, I normally would just go ahead and collapse it at this point, but I'm just going to give us options. So we're doing edit poly. I'm going to go to polygon here, by angle. I'm going to pick this. I don't want that. So we're going to go put a delete mesh on it, which will delete anything that's selected. Then we're going to put an edit poly modifier back on top of that so we can edit it again. So we're going to go and pick all the polygons, and we need to invert them because we want to see the inside. The normals are facing the outside right now. We want the inside, so we just flip those. Now I want to put a little lip out here, so I'm picking the border, and I'm going to scale this, holding the shift key down, and scale this out just a little bit to give me a little bit of a border on it, like so. And then I'm going to double click here and double click down here because I'm going to chamfer those edges to make them a little bit rounded. So we bring up our chamfer settings. And it's going to be very sensitive. We want something fairly large like that, and then I'm going to want a couple iterations. Matter of fact, let's just do 2 because we're going to subdivide on top of this. So that looks pretty good. Let's set that in. Let's deselect, turn it off, and then let's put a subdivision on here. Mesh mode, turbo smooth, doesn't matter. And maybe we just need 2 iterations. And then that's going to look pretty good. Let's bring our high poly back. Alright, let's make a material for our high poly. So let's go here. And let's just turn some reflections off right now. And oops. And let's apply this to our, this is going to be it's going to eventually be a piece of metal, so this is our metal. Okay, looking at it from the front, and so I can, it doesn't matter how far away to a certain degree this is. I want to get it kind of close to it. I'd make sure I don't touch it. I need a little bit of space in there. Go from the top. And I'm going to hold down my shift key. And I'm going to make this, it can be an instance, it's fine. Okay, and then I'm going to pick both of these. And I'm just eyeballing it to be centered. I'm going to hold down the shift key. And I'm going to go maybe right about there. Then I make these instances, and I want 2 copies, so it makes another set here. And then I'm going to pick all of those. I'm holding down the control key. Going to recenter those. And that looks pretty good. Okay, and then here's our magic we're going to do. And so that we can look at this the way that the normal map will look at it. So I'm going to pick all of these, and then I'm going to apply this same material to it, and then turn our wireframe off. And these will look like they're holes cut down into it. These are what's called floaters. And floaters we love in low poly because we can actually make it seem like we actually cut this into the die, but they're actually just floating over the top of it. These are called floaters. Okay, so now go back to the top. By the way, I'm hitting Z each time. That'll zoom into our object. Okay, so I need 4 of these. I'm holding the shift key. And I'm going to move them over to here. Instance is fine. Go to the front view. And now I want to rotate these. I want to make sure I have my angle snap on, so that I know they rotate at a perfect 90-degree angle. And then I'm going to put these, and this is the right side, so V, right view, Now I can center these around, and there's my side with 4 on it. I could space these out if I wanted to. So I'll leave them at that right now. Okay, I'm going to take 2 of these, hold the shift key down, and I'm going to drag it to the other side. I could do a symmetry on this, but really this is going to be easier. An instance, and go to the top, and then I need to rotate these around. Let's look at it from the left. Now, I'm not really taking the time to research this. I don't really know which, what goes on the other side. We could do some research on that, but for what I'm doing right now, it's fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick all of these, go to the top, and then I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to change this from view to the world, and this one to the world, and then I know that'll be the center of the die. I'm holding down the shift key, make sure your angle snap is on, and I'm going to rotate this. Okay, instance. Alright, so I'm going to make this side have 5, so I'm just going to pick these, right click, isolate it right now. And this is the back. I think it's the back view, is it? Yeah. And so, then I'm going to, this one, move, hold down the shift key, and then drag it and put it right in the center here. And that's a little tight. So I'm going to move this. Matter of fact, let's move these up at the same time. Move these down at the same time. And let's move these over a little bit. Move these over a little bit. Pretty close. I could measure it. Okay, so let's end our isolation. And so we need what is this? This is the front, yeah. One here. Alright, and then let's go get these right here. And let's look at it from the right. I'm going to rotate, and I still have it on world. Okay, hold down the shift key and grab this outside ring. And that'll go there. And that's the bottom. And that's our 3. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to move these a little bit closer now. So, right about there. Right about here. And let's go to the right side. Let's move these up a little bit. Okay, let's Okay, 1, 4, 5, 2, 6, and 3. They may not be on the right sides, but for what I'm doing right now, I don't really care. Okay, so, alright, so let's rename these. So we're going to take these, we're going to go to Tools, Rename Objects, and the file name we're going to be die holes. And then I want them numbered and rename, and those will all be renamed. And then I'm going to hold down the control key and I'm going to pick the die 2. Now, by the way, some of you may be on hierarchy, which is here. I want to be on layers. And now with all those picked, I can right click and I can create a layer. And this layer, I'm double clicking on it really lightly right there, is my high poly. And that way I can hide these as a group. I'm going to pick the low poly and I'm going to go ahead and make a layer for it too. This is my low poly. Just to keep organized. Okay. Now, by the way, this little green stack, this is telling you what's the default. So if I was to create something, it's going to go on that. You normally want to leave that on default. So when I create something new, it always goes to the default layer. And now this is organized. And now let's see about doing let's pick the low poly. And we're going to go to render. And we're going to go bake to texture. This will bring our bake to texture. Right now we're just going to bake the normal. So we've got to make sure that low poly is picked, normal, and then apply it. For test purposes, let's do a 1024 so it's faster. Here where this says self, we want to pick from a list. And then it'll bring all our pieces that we want to pick. And we want to pick all of these, because we want all of these to be cast onto it. Alright, now, I don't know if you can tell or not, probably not. This is like a light purple, and what that tells me is that by default in Max, we have a gamma setting on, and when you're casting a normal, we really don't want the gamma setting on. So under rendering, if you go down to this color management, we want to turn this unmanaged. And now this will turn to a dark purple, which is our standard normal purple. Over here, we want PNG. Let's click a little gear. We want 24-bit alpha. That's what we want. That's good. And then this is pointing to where you want to bake your images, which I want to bake them right there. So I'm going to select that folder. And then the last thing we need to do before we actually bake this is we need to reset this cage. You can see this cage is all whacked. That's a technical term. So on your cage over here, we want to open up where it says cage, and we want to go down here and hit reset. And then we want to push this out. Oops. Guess my viewport. Okay, so something about like that to capture these edges. And then I need to manipulate this because our pieces aren't inside of it. So we're going to go here and I'm going to pull, I think, just that up enough. It's just got to be enough that this is inside the cage. And do the same down here. And then we're going to do the same over here. Okay, now we need need to look at it from the side. Doesn't matter if it's right or left. We need to grab these and pull it out this way. Okay, now top on the front. Okay, so I have everything in there now. Okay, turn that off. Alright, let's try a bake. So, bake. And there's our normal map. Alright, and then we're just going to bring that in and look at that real quick as a study. So we don't want this black background, but for right now it'll be okay. So now we're going to go over to here, and we're going to go to our normal and turn this on and grab this, import the texture, import, and there's my normal. Set that in. And we're going to fix the deal with the holes here in a few minutes, that they're at an angle. Okay. So let's get our little model inspector here. We go to matte cap, and then matte cap with the surface. And that's working pretty good. And then the next thing we're going to do is come back and fix this issue with that these are not straight. Okay, but that normal casts pretty good. It looks pretty good. Off, on, and that's a good start for stage 1. Okay, awesome.